Hi everyone, before this video starts, I want to remind you that I currently have the Hoagland & Sons Mark II chronograph, which I designed for sale. If you're interested, check out the link in the description. This is the kind of sequel to the watch that I designed as part of a successful Kickstarter campaign in 2019. I think you'll all be very interested in this watch. It has been an absolute joy to create. Again, check out the link in the description and we'll resume the rest of the video.
Alright guys, so now let's get into the comparison of these two watches. So on my left we have the Breitling AVI Re-edition, and on the right we have the standard Breitling Navitimer. So these are the two icons of Breitling's collection, I would say, or at least the aviation side of their collection. The Navitimer being the most popular and really most renowned Breitling, period. And the AVI was always kind of its... I kind of want to say little brother, although the capability is still there and the quality was really no different between these two timepieces. But it kind of came out a bit later than the Navitimer, and it just kind of cleaned up the Navitimer. They removed basically all the markings from the dial, besides the base markings, kind of the extra markings. And then the bezel is also cleaner. It just has an hour bezel, which is actually used for the purpose of a GMT type of usage, just because you can change the bezel hour by hour. It actually clicks once per hour, which I think is really cool. So it's a 12-click bezel, unidirectional, and you'll just set this so you can technically use then this watch as a GMT timepiece. As if I set this a few hours difference, you can be tracking the time on the dial and the time on the bezel. So it's a very useful kind of complication for a pilot to have. In addition, you're going to end up getting a 15-minute counter at 3 o'clock. You're going to be getting a 12-hour counter at 6 o'clock, and you're getting a running seconds at 9 o'clock. So now going to the Navitimer, you can see the Navitimer has a lot more going on in the dial, and that's mainly because of its slide rule that this watch contains. So the slide rule allows you to do basic math calculations, addition, subtraction, multiplication, things like that, division. Using a slide rule. I personally don't know how to use one. I used to know, I forgot, so I'm sorry I can't demonstrate it in this video. But you can also do conversions. So it will show you, it has conversions from kilometers, I believe kilometers to miles. You can also do difference between nautical miles versus standard miles, things like that with the slide rule. So it's very useful for a pilot just because they can convert between these units if they ever need to. So it is also makes the dial a bit more cluttered, which is something people don't like. Certain people don't like about the Navitimer. That's really the chief complaint that I hear. You either really love the Navitimer or you don't like it because you think dial's too complicated. So I think it's great that they brought the AVI because it still has kind of the heritage look almost of the Navitimer, except I'd say taken up a notch, but it cleans up the watch a lot. So, other difference between these, the AVI is a limited edition, 1,953 pieces commemorating the year that this watch came out, versus the Navitimer is a standard watch in their collection. But again, they kind of have, I guess, a similar client base, I would say, as if you're looking for an aviation-themed, historical chronograph. These are two very good options for you. And one thing I forgot to mention, the Navitimer also offers a date between 4 and 5 o'clock. So if that's really important to you, you'll definitely want to go with the Navitimer. So some other differences include the different crystals. So the AVI uses a Hesalite crystal versus the Navitimer uses a sapphire crystal. Sapphire is going to be a lot more resistant to scratching versus the Hesalite will accept more scratching, but it's going to provide a bit more of a warmer tone to the dial. And also I noticed the reflections are different. So as you can see in the sapphire, when I hold it up to the light there, you can see it reflects blue. That's really actually not due to the sapphire, that's due to the AR coating, versus the Hesalite just kind of has standard reflections to it. I've also noticed that Hesalite sometimes will reflect a bit less than sapphire. On this one, I noticed the sapphire doing about the same, maybe slightly better, because I think they put a pretty heavy anti-reflective coating on it, which is great. But that's kind of a personal preference thing. If you're really worried about scratching up the crystal on your watch, so you'll probably want to go with sapphire. But another thing to consider is with Hesalite, you can always polish out minor scratching, and it is a lot cheaper to replace. I'm not sure what Breitling charges to replace a Hesalite crystal, but I know with Omega on their Speedmasters, the sapphire crystal, if you want to replace that, is a few $100s, versus if you want to replace a Hesalite, it's about under $100 sometimes. It gets very inexpensive, which is nice. So going on the cases of these timepieces, the case on the AVI is going to be 41 millimeters, and it's going to be to the exact dimensions of the original watch, which I absolutely love that they did that. I think the case sizing is perfect. It's nice and thin. That's also having to do with the fact that this has a mechanical movement versus the Navitimer having a automatic movement. They're both based on the B01 movement. However, again, the AVI's watch just isn't automatic. It's only mechanical, so you have to hand wind the watch. And that's what they do in their historical reissues. Breitling made that movement based off the B01 specifically to be used in their reissues of historic timepieces. So again, if you think you're not really going to want to wind your watch up every day or every few days, then you might want to go with the Navitimer over the AVI. Now, that does bring a downside to the Navitimer in that it is quite a bit thicker. I would say a good couple millimeters thicker almost between these two watches. And that's just simply due to the fact that they have to put the automatic rotor into this watch. But you do get to see the movement on the Navitimer, which is really cool. You don't get to see the movement on the AVI, sadly. It's just a solid steel case back. Which I think is a bit of a shame. I think it would have been cool if they did sapphire case back, but they want to keep it as traditional to the original model, so I definitely understand why they made that decision. But you can see it on here, and you can see also the chronograph, some of the chronograph mechanism. Here, I'm just going to shake the rotor down. So you can see the column wheel there, and I can activate the chronograph. Just want to make sure I'm pressing the right button. So if I activate it, there it starts, stop, start, stop again, reset, and then if you want to see it, you can see it go. There, start, stop, reset, and then same with the AVI. Start, stop, reset. The movements really feel almost exactly the same, and again, that's because they are the same movement. Now, I didn't mention the Navitimer does have a bigger case size. It's 43 millimeters. They also do make it in a 45 if you want an even larger size watch. But this is the standard size, which is the smaller of the two. They're both large enough, and I would recommend the 43. I think the other one is too large, unless you have a very big wrist. I'll demonstrate that now with the wrist shot. So this Navitimer also does come with a strap, an alligator style of strap. You can see the pattern there, and it also comes with a buckle, a deployant buckle, instead of a pin and tang. You can get this on a bracelet as well, although I prefer it on a leather strap with the Navitimer. It's one of the few watches I do. So on the wrist, it's still quite a large watch. If you have a small wrist, the Navitimer might be a bit problematic for you. So I would recommend trying it on in person just to make sure that it will fit you. But I think it's very comfortable still. It feels nice on the wrist, and I think most people will be able to wear this watch successfully. Just if you have a very small wrist, I think you definitely need to try this watch on before you purchase. And I think you should with any watch as well. Now for the AVI, I think it's slightly more comfortable on the wrist. So the sizing is a bit smaller, so I think this is more of a universal fit for people at the 41 millimeter size, which is my favorite size is 40 millimeters, so that's perfect. The strap I think is slightly more comfortable, as it's a really soft strap. There isn't any texture to it, and it seems to also bend a bit easier to the shape of your wrist. But I mean, that's just a matter of breaking the strap in. So the Navitimer, I'm sure, will feel just the same once it's broken in more. And they do have the same inner leather, so you can see it's the bright yellow soft leather, which is the same as on the Navitimer as well. And then, as I said, you get this with a pin and tang buckle instead of a deployant clasp. I believe you could probably buy a Breitling deployant clasp if that's what you really want, but that would have to be separate from the purchasing of the timepiece. So now let's get into price. So pricing is very similar on these watches. The AVI comes in at $8,600 versus the Navitimer comes in at $8,930. And I actually speculate that's not actually due to the difference in the watches. I think it's actually due to the difference in the buckle. Because if I remember correctly, the buckle, the deployant clasps cost around $350 if you want to buy them separate. and that's really the price difference between these watches. So I have a hunch that the price difference between these really comes down to the buckle. So it's really up to you whether you want which one you want to go for. The Breitling Navitimer has a bit more of a modern look. It's going to be a bit more rugged due to its sapphire crystal. So if that's something you're concerned about, this watch might be the one for you. Again, it's bigger, so if you have a larger wrist and you like larger watches, the Navitimer is good. But if you're looking for something that's more traditional and kind of harkens back to the heyday of the original Breitlings and has a nice vintage style, I think the AVI is perfect. Personally, I would go with the AVI, but that's just my personal preference. I prefer the styling of this. I think it's cleaner. And I really like the bezel on this as well, the way it works. So again, it's up to your choice. I would like to see what you guys would say in the comments as to which watch you would prefer over these two. I think it'd be very interesting. One thing I will mention is I do, however, think the Breitling looks like a more expensive watch. Even though I prefer the AVI personally, I think that due to its polished hands and also kind of the text on the Navitimer's dial is kind of brushed or polished as well. You kind of got to see it in person. I'm not sure if it's coming through on video, but it kind of pops and it looks a bit more expensive, I would say, than the AVI personally. But again, I'd like to hear what you guys think in the comments. Let me know. Drop one down there. I'd like to thank you guys for watching this video. These watches were both lent to us for the purpose of this review by Continental Diamond in St. Louis Park, Minnesota. Go check the link in the description to their website, and then you can see these watches and all the other fine watches in their collection. Thank you guys for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you.